can do better. I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, earlier today, I had, a moment of consternation. I smelt the biggest load possible. And for a moment, I thought maybe Aurora had done a jobby. And then I realized, no. To use a mid-scabies vulgarism, Netflix had dropped Harry and Meghan's series. They're mockumentary. They're fomentary. They're phantasmagoria. And I am not going to cover the details of it today. I am not the King or the Prince of Wales. I do not believe in knee-jerk reactions and being precipitate. And I have inquiries to make. So my next video will be on the heroes, Harry and Meghan. My goodness, how has the world survived for all this time without their help and their intervention? Aren't they wonderful? I mean, I think we ought to abolish every form of democracy, autocracy, and every other thing except Harry and Meghan's hypocrisy, and make them into the dictators of the whole of the world. And since their egos are so big, maybe they will then want an upgrade to become rulers of the universe. Well, without further ado, I am now going to plunge right in. The reality is, with Harry and Meghan, one needs to be on one's guard because they have a rat-a-tat-a approach, like a machine gun, just spraying bullets and some will meet the target. They have recently been burying everybody under their truth and their glorious conduct, which can usually be summarized as misconduct by those of us who take a differing view as to their stances. And basically, it's one imagined narrative or imaginary narrative or conjectured narrative that bears little resemblance to their fact after another. One plot and scheme after another. And they come so fast and furious that unless you deal with each thing as it happens, you can end up letting lies pass, which they will then hope that everybody has accepted as the truth instead of their truth. And quite frankly, it's a very good technique. It's a technique that dictators have traditionally used, I have to say, not with the skill or the alacrity or indeed the speed that Harry and Meghan deploy these tactics. Even Hitler and Stalin were more measured. But they have a very well thought out plan, a modus operandi that will allow them to get away with post-factual remembrances or pre-factual inventions unless we are on our guard. So I am today going to deal with things in a timely manner. I don't think we need to be desperados and do knee-jerk reactions. Anne Fulcher says, I personally believe that it wasn't Netflix alone who chose the photos that have nothing to do with Harry and Meghan, or even members of the royal family. I personally believe it was Meghan Markle who chose them originally, and Harry went along with it. He is too scared of his wife to object. Well, may I say, Anne Fulcher, you could be right. I'm not prepared to absolve Harry of any blame. Did you see the way Harry beamed with delight? I'm the center of attention. Look at those cameras. One click at a time to give me the pleasure that Meghan otherwise gives me. He practically came as he was arriving. It was astonishing. The oozing of pleasure from both of them. Gosh, Mr. DeMille, we have our moment in the sunshine. You don't have that degree of unexpurgated joyousness unless you are absolutely complicit. And all that nonsense that they were planting about them possibly getting separated. Deflection in my view. That's why I was very careful from the very outset to say I was not prepared to accept it as a fact. And thank God I was judicious enough to be cautious. Because nobody is that good an actor. Harry was absolutely orgasmic at the Ripple of Hope Awards, as was Meghan. Joyousness oozing out of every pore. So they really are two gluttons for attention. And we are A-listers. We have knocked everybody out of the limelight. Well, not really, but that's their take on it. Now, as for the pictures, customarily, publishers or producers have the responsibility of doing the photographs and creating the ads and the trailers. That doesn't mean that the writer stroke actor stroke participant in the project, the star of the project, so to speak, doesn't have a say. And even when they do not have a right of refusal, which is very seldom granted for very sound reasons, because the producers, publishers, etc., don't wish to hand over absolute control to stars, in quotes, who will not be as competent as they are, they nevertheless still consult with their stars. And unless you can come up with a very good reason for not wanting something, it's usually granted. Now, the reality is, Meghan and Harry have never attracted the press attention that Katie Price has attracted, because there's an occasion in there where her appearance at Crawley Magistrates Court is what has attracted the press. Now, most Americans, I'm sure, have no idea who Katie Price is. Katie Price was a glamour model, a page 3 girl who had huge and wonderful bazookas. And page 3 used to feature girls with huge and wonderful bazookas. And that's how she started. I know Katie Price. I like Katie Price. Katie Price actually considered buying Castle Goring. And I'm not going to go into the whys and wherefores of why she never got it, because I'm not telling tales out of school. But Katie Price at one stage would have liked to acquire Castle Goring. I like her. She is a huge media star in Britain, but not so huge as Diana would have been. Nevertheless, far larger than Harry and Meghan, who've never attracted that amount of coverage. Then there's a Harry Potter premiere. So even a movie attracts more attention than Harry and Meghan. Not to mention Mr. Trump's lawyer Michael Cohen going to prison. So even a lawyer who's going to prison attracts more attention than Harry and Meghan, who would like the world to believe they're hounded by the paparazzi. Oh my goodness, we have to escape from Britain because everybody's after us. The problem is nobody's after them. That's the reality. And they couldn't buy stories in Britain the way they can buy them in America. That's another reason for their decamping. Then, of course, there are children waving flags at Queen Mary, the Dowager Queen, King George VI's mother, in 1938, 2 years after she was widowed. Do you begin to see? Not only has there been no intrusion, because another act that was purported to be an intrusion was the photograph taken from a balcony of them with Archie at Desmond Tutu's. It was taken as a rota photograph. Robert Jobson, whom I also know, and who's a respected court correspondent, one of the few that I respect. And if I say I respect him, I think that should mean something. Well, he was involved with it, and it was agreed. So there has been absolutely no intrusion whatsoever. They couldn't come up with one photograph, one bit of evidence, one bit of proof that Harry and Meghan have been subject to press harassment. So what do? They lie, brazenly lie, falsify it by pretending that Katie Price is Meghan and Harry, Michael Cohen is Meghan and Harry, Harry Potter premiere is Meghan and Harry, Queen Mary, dead long before either Harry or Meghan or even Diana was thought of, is Harry and Meghan. I mean, the question one has to ask, since there's never been any intrusion, And the narrative is that they were so hounded, and Harry's always on, we're being hounded the way Mummy was hounded. Well, Mummy kept on making those phone calls, and they keep on employing people to get them publicity, so they might well end up the way Mummy ended up, because Mummy was partly responsible for her own death. Sad, but true. So they need to understand that they're playing with fire. But quite frankly, at the rate they're going, it might be a massive relief if they managed to waft off into paradise, quite frankly. Not that I wish them ill or wish them to do so, but I think an awful lot of people would be mightily relieved if they just managed to disappear like a puff of smoke. It begs the question, though, is Netflix hanging them out to dry? And I have spoken to people in America, and there is the possibility that Netflix is playing a very sophisticated and cynical game, because Netflix had to know that those photographs were all fakes and frauds where Harry and Meghan were concerned, and that this would be picked up by the British press. If they didn't realize that that was the consequence of their fraudulent misrepresentation, and that's what it is, they are really dumb. But can they be that dumb? And they is Netflix, not Harry and Meghan. I doubt it. Of course, all this controversy increases interest. So Netflix, I am advised, is very cynically ratcheting up the interest. And if at the end of the day, Harry and Meghan fall by the wayside like bad seed, c'est la vie, c'est la guerre. And if they don't, and there is sufficient interest after this series drops like the load that it is, and there is another series which there could well be, on the grounds that Harry and Meghan are so atrocious that there is actually demand to see what else they are going to come up with, Netflix has won either way. I am assured that Netflix is playing a very clever game and is actually not protecting Harry and Meghan to the extent that their chicanery and their falsity, as would be the only reasonable conclusion to come to as a result of their conduct, that the public is being allowed to judge for itself. There is also the element that the American public is less knowledgeable and less interested in scrutiny and examination than the British public. The American media gives everybody a free pass unless it's a Republican who is in the jaws of a Democratic newspaper, or occasionally a Democrat who's in the jaws of a Republican publication. Everybody else gets a free pass. So there's not going to be the degree of press scrutiny. And there is the hope that this will increase Meghan and Harry's saleability as a brand. Let us see what happens. What will be interesting, however, is if this first series does well and a second series is judged to be desirable, that means that Harry and Meghan will have to be ratcheting up their attacks on the royal family and the British people. Now, they have recently, with their cohorts, managed to bring a 62-year-old career by a very eminent lady called Susan Hussey to an ignominious conclusion as a result of unfair accusations of racism. Of course, the race card plays well in certain circles in both the United States and, it has to be said, Britain and the Commonwealth. So maybe they have a career as heightened race dividers and heightened anti-royalists. Let's see how well that's going to play with being members of the royal family, because my understanding is they are going to find it increasingly difficult to avoid the consequences of their actions. More than that, I do not wish to say at this stage. Barbara Taylor says, and I'm not doing the ats and the numbers, okay? Just ridiculous. Lady C, do you think Harry and Meghan made a generous donation to the Kennedy Foundation and literally bought their Ripple of Hope humanitarian award? Something in what Alec Baldwin said about them being new supporters of this organization leads me to think this is possible. And what do I think? Harry and Meghan don't have the class of money that they would like you to believe that they have. Everything is my back scratches your back. It's one deal after the other. It's one commercial trading after the other. She tried to reduce Buckingham Palace to a souk. That's what she tried to do. And she is succeeding in reducing, well, she has succeeded in elevating herself to the status of a successful stall holder in a souk. It's undoubtedly not quid pro quo in terms of money, but in terms of I'll get you attention, you will get me attention. I'll create some notional joint effort with you, and this will get us column inches today and tomorrow. And really, that's what Kerry Kennedy wants. And that's what Meghan and Harry want. And I get what you were saying about something Alec Baldwin said. Because if I remember correctly, he's the one who made the point that Harry and Meghan were recently on this bandwagon. Well, I'm glad to see that Mr. Baldwin is recovering from the trauma of the very unfortunate incident that happened when he killed that poor girl. Uh, his politics are very well known, and it does, however, give a level, it gives an indication, I should say, as to the level of participant that Kerry Kennedy can attract. How come she didn't attract George Clooney? He's also a well-known Democrat supporter. Ooh, I just make that point for what it's worth. Also second tier, also second row, also we've arrived, Mr. DeMille. We're ready for our close-ups. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Embarrassing. But the media need events to cover, and this was a circus that they were happy to cover. Michael Willoughby says, I'm truly astonished that Harry attended that wretched awards farce. There's no other word I can conjure but scoundrel. No matter how deep the claws are in, are you referring to the mega claw? You never, big block capitals, turn your back on the very family that has loved, raised, and cherished you since the day you were born. The claws are obviously much deeper than any of us thought. Well, yes, that's why I was skeptical. I know that the marriage is very volatile, and I know that her marriage to Trevor was also very volatile. My understanding from people who know Meghan very well is that she has the variable reinforcement technique of narcissists. Push and pull, 1 minute covering and bombarding with love, the next demands and, oh, you've let me down, or as Harry's reported to have said when they were in New York for attending the assembly, the General Assembly that he was going to be attending and speaking to a packed house, and the only people there were actually the people who seemed to have been along with him, maybe 30. And the night before, he was overheard saying in their hotel that there's nothing I can do that ever pleases you. Well, bear that in mind when you're considering a marriage of that nature. And bear in mind the tricks of the trade, because it is a trade. Oh, you know, the separation story would appear to be as false as the pregnancy plant that we were supposed to be running with when the Queen died, because I alluded to the fact that there was a story that it was said that Meg's baby was hoping to get out to swamp the Queen's funeral, namely that she was pregnant. Well, I know she's perpetually pregnant with plans and schemes, but babies, well, I refused to run with the story, and so did other people who they were hoping would run with the story. The claws are very deep because there's a strongly Oedipal aspect to the relationship. When you're sleeping with your mother, in a notional as opposed to an actual way, it's a pretty strong bond. Well, there are also people who would say that it is a dubiously healthy bond. Dubiously healthy. But when you have that plus two egotists of the order of Harry and Meghan, two activists, politically ambitious, greedy for attention, one of whom is deluded enough to hope that he is outstripping his brother and father as a humanitarian, as they donate £10 a month to a dog rescue charity. I mean, while his father created out of his severance pay from the Navy the Prince's Trust that has given away hundreds of millions and affected positively the lives of millions of young people. Or William and Catherine's genuine charities. And Harry and Meghan managed to raise $50,000 last year for their charity, Archewell, or as they mispronounce it, Archewell. The purpose of all of this is attention and money, and they will then spin around and believe that they are power players and that their illusory importance is actual. It's smoke and mirrors time. It's dress up time. It's children playing at being rulers. It's all show and no go, like a Potemkin village or Meghan's displays of love, compassion, and authenticity. I'm so authentic. Never, ever did I look up anything about age. No, I didn't. I sort of knew that he was royal, but I let everything evolve naturally and organically and authentically. I also understand that there is a great hold that Meghan has over Harry, aside from being a far more dominant, powerful, assertive, and a variable reinforcement personality. And that is that she has perfected arts that the Grand Horizontales were well known for in the 19th century and the early years of the 20th century. And she keeps him very well satisfied when she is not keeping him on his toes, practicing the variable reinforcement that a dominatrix lashes out to her submissive. One lash at a time. So I'm told. Of course, all of this is perfectly legal. And tastes vary, as do recollections. But some recollections are very accurate, And evidently, once you've experienced Meghan's artistry in varying departments, it's never forgotten. Janice Reeve says, well, Lady C, Harry did show up at that awards ceremony and did not plead a diplomatic illness. The gruesome twosome rarely have declared war now. What do you say, Lady C? Best wishes, Janice. Well, I'm going to read out one or two things that Kerry Kennedy said. We're so proud of their work on racial justice and on mental health parity and awareness. Now, I'm going to pick these up as I read them out. Their work on racial justice. They have caused more racial division in the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth than anybody has caused for the last 50 years. And that's racial justice? Towards the end of this, I'm going to read out comments from Black people and people of colour who know what they're speaking about. I can tell you, as a Jamaican who has a real interest in racial harmony, that people in the Black community, with notable exceptions, are outraged at what Meghan and Harry are up to. Yet Kerry Kennedy has the absolute unmitigated gall to speak about racial justice. Since when did racism qualify as racial justice? And as for mental health parity and awareness, what the hell is mental health parity? If something is on par with something else, it's equal. Mental health parity. I mean, this is the total abuse of the English language. Maybe if she hadn't drunk so much to get various DUIs or whatever they're called, DIUs, she would know that you can't have mental health parity. Doesn't make sense. And awareness. Well, they're certainly beating the drum that they're mentally ill. They're certainly beating that drum, and that they're emotionally disturbed. So, to that extent, they are creating awareness, but not because of a good example, but because of a shockingly atrocious example. Then we have Don Lemon. I mean, talk about a lemon. I think they're making a difference and changing the world in their own way. So good on them. They're certainly making a difference, and they're changing the world in their own way. They're changing the world in a destructive way. Nobody who has any foot in the camp of racial harmony and doesn't have an axe to grind racially and a political advantage to gain thinks that they're doing anything positive. Everybody else thinks they are destructive and causing racial divisiveness and making a difference. Hitler made a difference, you idiot! So did Stalin. So did Mao Zedong. So did Pol Pot. And you're talking about they're making a difference as if it's positive? Crikey, you people really. As for Harry's acceptance speech, it was a study in cheesiness. I thought it was a date night. And with his weird body language now, the uncontained disconnectedness of somebody who is borderline problematic, let's put it that way. Of course, during the ceremony, Harry and Meghan announced a new collaboration between their Archewell Foundation and the Robert Kennedy Foundation. It's called the Archewell Foundation Award for Gender Equity in Student Film. And here is the word salad that accompanied that bit of vinegary nonsense. Our hope with this award is to inspire a new generation of leadership in the arts, where diverse up-and-coming talent have a platform to have their voices heard and their stories told, the couple said in a statement. The values of RFK Foundation and the Archewell Foundation, as they will insist on mispronouncing it, are aligned in our shared belief of courage over fear and love over hate. Together, we know that a ripple of hope can turn into a wave of change. Waves of change are not always good. Don't take my word for it. Take the word of all of the victims of the Committee of Public Safety during the French Revolution, or of the tens of millions of people that Lenin and Stalin eradicated, not to mention the tens of millions that they enslaved in the name of liberty. As for Harry and Meghan's claim, courage over fear, excuse me, being a brazen hussy doesn't make you courageous. It makes you a brazen hussy. Courage, not the same as unmitigated brass neck and love over hate. Love. This couple dares to speak about love when it has trashed the British nation, the British royal family, has tried to destroy and nearly succeeded in destroying her father's reputation, and has certainly destroyed the closing years of his life, because no matter what happens, there's no way he is ever going to recover from the abuse to which he has been subjected by Meghan and Harry. Love. What about the love for a sister who's in a wheelchair? What about Harry's love for his brother and sister-in-law, who he used to love before he discovered that it was in his Mr. DeMille, I've got my moment of glory, bring it on! Attention-seeking that has resulted in him trashing, and his wife trashing his brother and sister-in-law, covertly as well as overtly. Love over hate. All of that strikes me as very hateful. I could be wrong. It could be love. But I don't think so. I think I'm right. And I think they have one hell of a nerve lecturing people about love over hate, just as how they have one hell of a nerve of lecturing people about, oh, don't you ordinary people go on holiday because you're going to damage the environment. We, on the other hand, are far too great and grand to go on commercial flights, unlike my carsome elder brother and his wife, who they take commercial flights, but my wife and I, we are too important to take commercial flights. So you're not allowed to take a commercial flight because you're an oik and you're trash and you're just ordinary. And you includes me and you, all of us. But they are allowed to take private flights that consume and do far greater damage to the environment. The hypocrisy, the lack of comprehension of what words mean, the pretentiousness, the affectation is truly offensive. And I am sorry, I know too much about the destruction that Harry and Meghan have wrought on their families and people related to their families and allied with their families to be anything but absolutely outraged at all of this piffle that comes out of their mouths. As for turning things into a wave of change, they are really only interested in column inches and performing monkeys on the world stage so that they can make money. That's really what they are, performing monkeys on a world stage. And there doesn't need to be any follow-up or consistency, because remember the 40 by 40? What became of those 40 women who are going to give 40 minutes and make such a difference to all those millions of women who Meghan has such compassion for, like she has for her father and Harry has for his father. Susan Parker says, well, they have accepted the award. Meghan was wrapped in a bedsheet and that was still too big for her. And I'll read out the second one, which is EAD says, was there ever a more unflattering, ill-fitting dress than Meghan Markle's at the Ripple of Hope Awards? I understand it was a custom Louis Vuitton number. Why can't she look decent even when the world's top designers are creating for her? First of all, my dear, let me tell you something. Louis Vuitton is not a top designer of clothes. Louis Vuitton is a luggage range. If you want drugs, you go into pharmacy. You don't go in to a bar. Let's put it that way. That might be the first clue. The second clue is, I actually don't agree with you. I hate to say. I thought she looked as good as she could, and I thought the dress was as well fitting as it could be. I thought it was one of the few occasions on which the dress fit her well. The difficulty is Meghan doesn't wear clothes that suit her. Catherine wore a £74 rental dress that fit her like a dream. But Catherine has an ectomorph's body. And Catherine has a clothes horse's figure. Meghan doesn't. Also, Catherine has dignity. Meghan has none. I mean, the very night of the Ripple of Hope Awards was the diplomatic reception at Buckingham Palace. And Catherine was a study in elegance, chic, and, dare I say, beauty in her wonderful red dress. She looked absolutely stunning. She's faultless when she is put together because she has the figure she dresses for that figure. I mean, if she wore certain other things, she wouldn't look good, but she knows what to wear. Meghan dresses in keeping with her vision of what she should be and not what she is. This is yet further disconnection from the reality of what she is. So she thinks she is a 5'10" clothes horse, when in fact she doesn't have a good figure for clothing. That dress did fit well, but it was all wrong for her body type. But I thought she looked as good as it was possible for her to look, so I can't actually agree with you. Sorry. User QD1VP5RS5J says, I do wish we had the old system. Sorry. I just saw that the Ripple of Hope Awards were last night, and both were in attendance and accepted the award. Not only did they accept the award, but they announced a new initiative too, with them sponsoring a foundation for gender equality. This has got to stop. They must be stripped of using their titles and merging them. The monarchy must take action. I'm an American, but it's a pure disgrace they come to America and they can come here and get tax breaks and accept awards for doing great work when they've done much of nothing except fly on private jets while preaching about climate neutrality. All the while, us normal people are struggling daily. It's terribly insulting, and the monarchy must break all ties and appearances with them. I have read this out because more and more people are coming to that view, and it's useful to get that viewpoint from an American. Let's see what happens. Thriving Development says, Dear Lady C, well, it has happened. Meghan and Harry have actually attended the infamous gala during which they have been honoured for fighting systemic racism within the royal family. In my mind, Harry and Meghan have crossed the Rubicon. They have set on a path of no return, at least not within the royal family and not even in England. Please give us your 2 cents. Are there going to be any consequences coming from the royal family and King Charles for this blatant and public betrayal? I really hope so, because I'm starting to lose hope in justice. Thank you. Do you remember when the Queen was ill and dying? And I was gently saying that, well, I was preparing the ground. But it was not the time to come out and say what I was being told. This is a similar situation. It's a very complex and truly appalling predicament for any father and any monarch to find himself in, and for any heir to a throne to find himself in, and a brother. Softly, softly, catchy monkey is going to be, for the moment, the order of the day. But Harry and Meghan might yet discover that there are consequences for actions. She spent her whole life escaping the consequences of her actions, and so has Harry. He wasn't an outright traitor until he got involved with her. And Harry and Meghan, if you think I am defaming you, sue me, because I will see in a court of law. because I think your conduct is traitorous. I think you are traitors to us, the British people, and to our monarchy. You don't like it? You think I'm lying? You think I'm unfair? Sue me. I'll see you in court. Now we come to the consequences. Chris Talvasa says, in South Africa, we are 11 different ethnic tribes. And this is really important, these two that I'm going to read out to you, because these show the consequences of Harry and Meghan's race baiting and racial stirring the pot, just so that they can pretend that they are championing the cause of the downtrodden when they are the one who are trodding down people. In South Africa, we are 11 different ethnic tribes, and each African tribe has its own traditional dress costume. It is for that reason we are referred to as the Rainbow Nation. It is therefore quite common to ask, which tribe do you belong to, when they are in Western clothes, because traditional dress is not worn on a working day. It is now mostly worn on special occasions. All this race baiting is doing immense harm to this country as well, because we have the Fulanis of the world here as well, trying to sour the harmony that exists between the various races. This is one of many comments I have received from South Africans. I have also received comments from people from all over the Commonwealth, some in the comment section, others via alternative routes. And I have also been speaking to people at a very high political and diplomatic level, all of whom are grossly outraged and grievously concerned at the mischief making that Harry and Meghan are creating racially. And now we will end with Jennifer Brooks, who is Jamaican. I support Lady Susan Hussey. The situation is tragic. My family is from Jamaica. I am fair-skinned and present as white. However, my sister looks black and cannot pass. My brother looks white, very like the British actor Stephen Graham, who has a black Jamaican grandfather. Well, my sister is constantly pulling out the race card. Every slight is because people are racist. She is offended at everything. I realize now, after decades of fighting, that she often misreads situations. A waiter may be extremely busy and not give her the proper attention, but in her eyes it is always about her colour. Who in their right mind would get dressed up in such a get-up to go to the palace? If you came dressed as a clown and someone asked you to tell a joke, would you have the right to be offended? That's my Jamaican girl. Love it. I have been asked at least 1,000 times the question, what are you? I say my family is from Jamaica. Then there are the questions. Oh, one parent is white, one is Jamaican. I finally know through ancestry that I am 17 different ethnicities, but 1/4 Scottish, along with English, Welsh, Irish, French, Chinese, Indigenous, Caribbean, Indian, and African. But ancestry can't figure out exactly from where. This keeps changing. Some Nigerian and Benin and Togo. I am never offended if I am asked, as there is always an interesting conversation that ensues. I hope that Lady Susan Hussey can be vindicated. From my perspective, looking at this situation from Canada, Marlene Headley Stroke and Ngozi Fulani is definitely a racist. And I have to tell you, these two comments are very representative. We have come a long way in my lifetime in harmonious racial relations. And these pot stirrers are splashing hot food onto bare skin and burning us. And it's gonna cause harm for everybody. White, brown, black, yellow, pink and green. Everybody. And I'm going to end with how I played the race card once. I was very naughty. But, you know, if the card exists, and I was naughty. When I was doing up this castle, we had on English Heritage a lovely team except for the head woman, who was a study in dreadfulness. She was oppressive. She was ghastly. Absolutely dreadful. I gave her every shot. I actually at first didn't even realize how poisonous she was. Carlisle, and those of you who've seen Lady C in the Castle, where we're doing up the castle, it was aired by ITV in September 2016. Carlisle features in it. Carlisle is my treasured, beloved builder and friend. And we've had a relationship now for decades. And I knew that Carlisle would be able to swing this and save me about £2 million. And since I don't have much money, £2 million was an awful lot of money to me. And I certainly wasn't going to be squandering it. I didn't have it to squander, and I wasn't squandering it. And the truth is, even if I'd had it to squander, I wouldn't have been squandering it. And this woman was obstructive at every turn about everything. And I'm not going to go into the rows that we had, but at first I listened because I'm not very reactive. I'm not precipitate. I give people enough rope to hang themselves with. And when the rope is securely around their neck and they've put it there and they're heading towards the precipice, I might give them a little push, which is what I did. Because my lawyer is the only person who said to me, get rid of this woman. She is going to make your life a nightmare if you don't get rid of her. The project is going to take years longer and cost you millions more, which I think was her intention, because my opinion of her was that she was a niggardly, mean-spirited individual who was eaten up with jealousy that I owned this and she didn't. And since she was completely needlessly obstructive at every turn, and there was no reason to be, because I wanted to do up the place as I have done it up. So the proof of the pudding is in the eating. There was nothing wrong with my intentions, but there was an awful lot with her intentions. And a year into the project, when with a week or 10 days before they were supposed to give listed building consent for the works to proceed, she tried to screw things up for a period of however long, and I wouldn't allow it. And I threatened to sue her and sue them and to involve the government and the press. But before doing that, and that was my coup de grace, and when they tried to defend her, I said, excuse me, your letter is proving my point. And so they got rid of her and she was replaced by someone else. Thereafter, we never had a problem. But before this happened, when we were still in the stage of choosing builders, she wanted me to choose her builders. Well, of course, it was going to be jobs for the boys. One of the people they wanted me to choose was an architect, was going to charge me £75,000 just to monitor the situation, even though we already had an architect. I mean, ridiculous. So they must have thought I was a fool. Well, I'm no fool. But anyway, she kept on opposing my desire to have my Jamaican builders. And I was determined I was going to have them because I knew under Carlisle's ministrations, this job would come in for about 2 million less than it would otherwise come in. And I made the point to her when she didn't want me to have my builders and she went on and on and on. And I made the point, I said, well, if you're going to give me the money and you're going to pay for it, fine, have your builders. Otherwise, I'm having my builders. Oh, no, she said. English Heritage isn't going to give you any money whatsoever. So I said, in that case, I'm going to have my builders. And she said, yes, or words to this effect. She said, well, but the Jamaican builders, we know nothing about them. And I said to her, and she might have said something even harsher than that, but I thought, this is my moment. I'm going to play the race card. And I said to her, Jamaican builders? What's this? You're implying that because they're Jamaican, that they're not as good as your English builders? I said, well, I've told you repeatedly that I have used them over the decades and I know they're good and this is my castle and it's my money and I want to have my builders that I know, and you're telling me you don't want me to have my builders because they're Jamaican? I said, excuse me, that's racist. I never heard another word. Never heard another word. I got my Jamaican builders. I played the race card very successfully. So the race card can work. And I'll tell you, in England, it's a really effective card to play. If you are up against the British establishment, because they don't want to be accused of being racist, even when they're not being racist, and they certainly don't want to be accused of being racist when they are being racist. And in my opinion, whether she was being racist or not, she was being obstructive. And since it wasn't her money, her will wasn't going to prevail. And it didn't. And her number two, Alma Howell, at the end of it all, when we were doing the inspection, she said, oh, Carlisle, you've done a brilliant job. It's been, everything is, which it was, a fabulous job. I mean, Jamaican workers, when they want to work, are the best, and they're inventive and they can turn their hand to anything and they're not lazy. It was a wonderful, happy experience, I have to tell you, for most of it. And after she congratulated Carlisle and told him what a wonderful job he and his men had done, she said to me, oh, Lady Colin, she said, you can be so proud of yourself. You have saved Castle Goring for the nation. I didn't say to her, because she's a really nice lady, I didn't say to her, Mrs. Howell, I didn't save Castle Goring for the nation. I saved it for myself and my children. I didn't say that but that was the truth. I was tempted to say it, but I thought, no, she wouldn't have enjoyed the witticism. She'd have thought I was needling her. So I just thanked her very much. So I can play the race card too. Let's put it that way. I know what I'm talking about. I've played it successfully. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell. And remember, please keep the questions and comments coming in. And feel free to ask anything about Netflix if you've seen it. And if you don't want to see it, I'm going to see it. And I will report for you. God bless. Bye-bye.